Israel, welcome back to another edition of Bible Basics. My name is SHAMAR, and to my left,
Shahadamoth.
Shahad. So tonight we're going to be going over so-called Negroes are Israel. Now, just to be clear, as a disclaimer, we're not saying that Negroes are the only Israelites. This is not a Negro-only lesson, but we are highlighting specific attributes, identifiers, curses to be able to show that the so-called Negroes are Israel. First, let's start off at Genesis chapter 7 and verse 1. You can read it when you got it. Salakia. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 7. Salakia.
This is Genesis chapter 1 and verse 7.
Uh-huh.
And the Most High made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so.
I'm sorry, 2 and 7. Forgive me, Ak.
This is Genesis chapter 2 and verse 7.
Uh-huh.
And the Most High formed man from the dust of the ground
Uh-huh.
and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life.
Uh-huh.
And man became a living soul.
So the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground. Take us over to the PowerPoint, just briefly. Be able to show what is the dust of the ground, right? Because if we were made of this component, what is this that we're talking about? So this is H6083 from H6080. Dust as powdered or gray, hence clay, earth, mud, ashes, dust, earth, ground, mortar, powder, rubbish. So the Most High literally made us from what he is describing as dirt, right? From the earth. And what color, and that's why I threw the picture up there, what color is that earth? It's very dark, right? It's a very dark texture of brown. You can bring it back to us. So when we're talking about the so-called Negroes, go over to Job chapter 30 and verse 30. When we're talking about the so-called Negroes being Israel, we're going to get a number of identifying factors, one of which is melanated skin. That does not mean it's exclusive to melanated skin, but that's one of the factors or one of the identifiers that you could look at someone and say, okay, this person has a good chance of being an Israelite because of, first off, their appearance. Go ahead.
This is Job chapter 30, verse 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burnt with heat.
He said, my skin is what?
Black upon me.
My skin is black. Said he was a black man. He was a dark-skinned man. Go ahead.
And my bones are burnt with heat.
And my bones are burned with heat. Take us over to Songs of Solomon. We're going to get a couple of these. We're going to get into a couple of these different identifiers. So we see the Most High made us from the dust of the ground, and then you see Job specifically talking about how his skin was black upon him, right? But there's more. Songs of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 5.
This is Songs of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 5.
Uh-huh.
I am black, but comely.
But comely, go ahead.
O ye daughters of Jerusalem,
Uh-huh.
as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon.
So he said, I'm black but comely. Comely literally means to be beautiful. So Solomon was saying, I'm black but I'm beautiful as the tents of Kedar. Take us over to the PowerPoint real quick. He said, I'm black like the tents of Kedar. Those are the tents of Kedar. If you literally Google tents of Kedar, these are the first 3 images that pop up. Black is midnight, very dark. So Solomon was proclaiming, I'm a very dark-skinned man and I'm good looking. That was pretty much all, what he was saying when he made that statement. I'm very dark and it's beautiful. So when you see, and mind you, this is one of the kings of Israel. This is one of, and this was one of the last kings that have ruled over all Israel as a whole, Solomon. So when you see the Most High forming us of the dust, you see Job being of that lineage, of the Israelite lineage, saying that his skin was black upon him. You see one of the kings of Israel talking about how dark-skinned he was. It starts to be able to paint a picture to identify what our people were looking like. Go ahead and give me Lamentations chapter 5 and verse 8.
This is Lamentations chapter 5 and verse 8. Servants have ruled over us. There is none that doth deliver us out of their hand. This is Lamentations chapter 5 and verse 10.
Uh-huh.
Our skin was black like an oven, because of the terrible famine.
Skin black like an oven because of the famine. So, so often we see that the Israelites are depicted as white people, right? Pale, pale-faced, light-skinned. But when, you ever heard that, I can't remember the name of the poem, Yo White Fella? I think it's called Yo White Fella. And it literally talks about how when you're embarrassed, you turn red. When you're sick or cold, you turn blue. Basically showing the different colors of white people and how they have the audacity to call us colored. But the reason why this is important is because he's saying because of the famine, because of the lack of food, and a famine is a lack of resources, lack of food, lack of water, he said that our skin was black and it was withered. So when white people get sick or when they get ill or, malnourished, do they turn black?
Definitely not.
No, right? That only happens to us. We're already melanated, but when that melanin starts to lose life or loses its luster, you're becoming unhealthy, it could become darker in a sense of, malnourished, and that's what was happening in this instance. That's what they were highlighting. He said because of the terrible famine, skin was black like an oven. You see the inside of an oven, it's dark, right? Go over to Daniel. Let's get some more attributes. Daniel chapter 9. Daniel chapter 7. And give me verse 9.
Daniel 7, verse 9.
Uh-huh.
I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit.
The Ancient of Days. Who's the Ancient of Days, right? This is speaking of the Most High. Who's the most ancient being? Go ahead.
Whose garment was white as snow.
So when we were speaking of the Most High, it's not necessarily to say that he's a ball of light. He has certain attributes that he can take on, certain things that he can present himself as, right? So when Daniel was receiving this vision, he was able to see the Ancient of Days. He was able to see some of his attributes, some of his look, right? It says the first thing was his garment was white as snow. Uh-huh.
And the hair of his head like the pure wool.
Like the pure wool. So he had hair on his head, and it was of a woolly texture. What nation on the face of this earth or what people have woolly hair? It's us, right? We have very woolly hair, very thick, very, very coarse. You take a comb through it, it's going to snap and pop. You take that same amount of hair, you take it through it again, and it might snap and pop some more. It's like wool. Go ahead.
His throne was like the fiery flame.
Uh-huh.
And his wheels as burning fire.
So he was looking at the Most High and describing him. Let's go over to Revelation chapter 1. So we spoke about King Solomon earlier. We're talking about another king, right? This is the King of Kings, speaking of Yahushai, or whom the world knows as Jesus. Let's start at verse 13.
Revelations 1 and verse 13.
Uh-huh.
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle.
Uh-huh.
His head and his hairs were white as wool.
So it said that he was girt about the paps with a golden girdle, and his head and his hairs were white like wool. So he had woolly textured hair, and it was all white. Go ahead.
As white as snow.
Uh-huh.
And his eyes were as a flame of fire.
And his eyes were as a flame of fire. So when you're literally looking, or when you're talking about brass, trumpets are made of brass. It's really a dark, almost gold-like material. I have a picture. Let me resize this because I really want to show this, albeit brief. See what the attributes of the king were. Take it over to the PowerPoint just for a moment. So we're going to show that brass. That's brass, right? It said that he had, verse 15.
And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burnt in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters.
So it said his feet were like unto fine brass. So first off, these two on the left, right, you have a trumpet, you have a solid piece of brass. They look almost like gold. It's almost like a rich gold color, but it's very clearly like a lighter brown. But it specifically said he looked like burnt brass. He had that very dark skin complexion. Dark skinned man, woolly hair with with white, right? White, woolly textured hair. That's what the king of Israel looks like. So let's get over to Deuteronomy chapter 28. So we see these attributes, right? The woolly hair, you see the dark skin, you see these attributes as far as sight, right? The things that you can see just on the surface level. But the most, one of the biggest things that we use to substantiate understanding that the so-called Negroes are Israel is the curses. That's like the backbone of Israelite understanding for the most part, is all based on the curses. Because the Most High literally, not only did he lay out a contract, essentially, he laid out an ultimatum for the children of Israel, which we're going to get into. You keep the commandments and you hearken unto everything that I've laid out before you, you'll be in a position of rulership. You'll be high above all the other nations on the earth. We will be, the rulers, the leaders in control. In the same way that you see, or in the same manner that you see Esau in control, we would have been in control, but righteously. The earth wouldn't be dying and destroyed and, all the things that you see going on had our people kept the commandments and been in righteous rulership, right? And you also see, because the Most High documented these things, because we did not receive those blessings and we rather receive those curses, they're identifiers. This is almost like a description. You know how police be like, man, you fit the description? This is that description that the Most High has left for us to be able to be a sign between us and him to show, these are my chosen. And because they disobeyed, we're the ones that are getting punished, right? Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 28. Let's read verse 1 and 2.
This is verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Most High, thy power, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee high above all nations of the earth.
So he said, ain't no equality. You're going to be above all the other nations on the earth. Like I said, we would be in the position of rulership that they're in. The same way that we're subject to their government, subject to their taxes, subject to their ideologies, all those kinds of things. The world would have been subject to Israelite law, would have been subject to Israelite rulership, and we would have been in a much better place because we have a law that to govern ourselves, right? It's not a whole lot of black and white. It's very clear. The Most High is not the author of confusion. Read verse 2.
And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
And see, this is one of the things that I feel like people don't focus on enough when they speak on the Most High. It's not like the Most High wanted to curse us or punish us. It's not like because I've heard people say that, and I don't know if you have, like, I don't want to serve a guy like that. You heard that?
I've heard that. Yeah.
People will say that, like, as if the Most High is like this like terrible bullying power, and then ultimately he was like, dude, I want y'all to do right. How many prophets did he send? How many warnings did he give? How many opportunities did we have to be able to repent even before getting to this captivity? And he even said, with the blessings, they shall come on thee and overtake thee. Like, life would just be so good. It don't matter which way you go or which way you turn, you're going to find success. It's overtaking you, right?
Can't even imagine that.
Exactly, right? Because we in this curse situation. But this is literally what the Most High set up for us. He said, man, these blessings are just going to be overtaken. Every time you turn, you're going to be getting blessed. Every time you turn, you're going to be finding success. This is what the Most High laid out for us. It really would have been our utopia, right? We would have been at peace. We would have been, in as good of a position as you can be as a mortal, so to speak, because the Most High was like, look, this is what I want for y'all. Scriptures clearly say the Most High has no pleasure in the death of the wicked. The Most High wants us to choose righteousness, and it's not even just that we'll live righteously. He said, look, I'm going to give you all these things if you choose to do so. But let's drop down to verse 15.
This is verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
He said, because he said, I give you all these things if you do right, but if you choose not to, and you don't want to obey the voice of the Most High, you don't want to observe these commandments, go ahead.
To observe and do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
And then it's the exact opposite. As opposed to everywhere you turn, you're getting blessed. Every time you turn around, it's something different to deal with. Some, new form of tribulation, some new trial, some new issue. We have a saying, if it ain't one thing, it's another. Because every time we turn around, something going bad. That's literally a curse that the Most High, that our God, the God of this Bible, has put upon the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans because we disobeyed his law. Now, instead of being able to reap the benefits, being on high, having a good life, whatever the case may be, and being able to find success, we constantly find the curse. We constantly find the disadvantage. We find the trials. We find the tribulation, all because of our disobedience. So ultimately, don't say, I don't want to serve a God like that. It was completely within our power.
God.
Isn't that the same thing? Because it literally, the Most High calls us the children of Israel, right? And he deals with us like a father with sons. If you have a child and they do everything correctly, they obey you, they're respectful, like you, of course you love your child. That's in, so for the sake of argument, your creation, right? That's your child. It's not like you want to whoop them. I don't know too many parents that's like, oh, I can't wait for you. I just can't wait for him to slip up because I want to see him cry. Like, nah, who's moving like that? You might find some out there today, but that's obviously not natural. So the Most High was the same way. He's like, but if you don't listen, unfortunately, I'm going to have to put these curses on you. Read verse 16.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
Take us over to the PowerPoint while we run through this section. So he said, cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. So on the surface level, you can see we're cursed in the city. When you look at the crime rates within the cities, you look at the gang banging, you look at the police harassment. LAPD is notorious worldwide for their cruelty, for their extermination of our people, for the way that they move, the combative tactics, the gangs, even within the organization of LAPD. You see that we're cursed in the city. And it's not exclusive to LA. Everywhere that our people are, we experience those conditions. We experience, having our steps hunted. We experience these curses. We experience the having to look over our shoulders, having to worry about where we at, what we doing, when we getting home. We have to think about all of those things, and we're cursed. And then he said, cursed shalt thou be in the field. Meaning, not only do you have slavery, then you had the Jim Crow era, the indentured servants, the sharecropping. You had so many other ways that even when we were in the field working our butts off, we still didn't have anything. But here's my question. If you're not in the city or the field, where are you? That's like the only two options, right?
God.
He pretty much saying no matter where you go, you're going to be cursed. You're going to be cursed in the city, and you're going to be cursed in the field. A lot of people try to, oh, we're going to move to Africa. We're going to move here. We're going to move out there. We're going here. We're going there, thinking that they're going to find some type of peace. And the Most High said, look, whether you're in the city or in the field, you're going to be cursed. There is no escaping the curses that have been put upon us, in the same sense that had we been righteous, there would have been no escaping the blessings. But this is our reward for our acts and our forefathers' acts, which was disobedient. He said, cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Read on.
Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body.
Hold on. He said, cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Take us over to the PowerPoint. So he said the basket and the store. This is one that I wanted to highlight because, this is a real life example. And especially because we're right here in Los Angeles, this is literally right up the street from us. How am I going to get this? There we go. Let me slide over. Here we go. Beyond unsanitary, photos of filthy Los Angeles grocery store posted to Facebook, sparking outrage. Photos of a filthy grocery store in Los Angeles, Gramercy Park, posted on Facebook on January 4th have sparked outrage. Candace Hill took the photos showing what she considered unsanitary conditions at the Ralph's grocery store on Manchester Avenue and later posted them on Facebook. We could walk to this Ralph's, right? The post has since been shared thousands of times. It's filth, it's grime. I would say it's beyond unsanitary. There's so much stuff. You can't tell if it's rodent droppings or mold. To me, it's probably both. Hill says she contacted the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health and alerted officials about the conditions. Kendra Doyle, a spokesperson for the grocery company, told KTLA that the condition of the store is not something we're proud of. It was something that immediately, when it was brought to our attention, we wanted to make sure and remedy, Doyle said. Officials plan to remodel the store This year, and the location passed its health inspection, Doyle added. So when you're talking about curse in the city and curse in the store, you literally have stores where this is where you got to go to get your groceries, right? This is where you're going to get produce to be able to feed your children. This is where you're going. And the crazy part about it is they didn't even close it down.
Right.
I can see if somebody were to be like, oh, my gosh, it's filthy, it's terrible. And they're like, well, it passed the health inspection. What did you see? She posted photos. And it's not like it's closed down now. The store is still open. We could go there right now. That's cursed. The fact that people can acknowledge that we're living in terrible conditions, you can't even identify if it's mold, if it's rodent feces or droppings. You don't know what it is, and it's disgusting, and yet that store is still open. It's still people right now. I bet you that store is still packed right now with people that are buying groceries. Our people that are buying groceries. It's cursed. Then, you not only have the inflation prices, but even as far as the actual produce that's being served, it's not healthy. We live in what's called a food desert, right? In the same way that it's hard to find resources in the desert, it's hard to find healthy food in our communities. I saw the difference for myself some years ago, man. We went to a Trader Joe's way up by the sand dunes. Yeah, as soon as I said Trader Joe's, it changed the dynamic. We went to a Trader Joe's, and I was so hungry, man. It was late. I'm like, man, I'm just finna go in here. I'm finna get a bag of Lay's. I'm gonna eat those, at least have a little something till I'm able to get home, and I'm gonna get a meal. I walked down every aisle. Couldn't find the Lay's.
There's no Lay's in there.
I couldn't find Lay's.
Yeah, it's not in there.
I was like, all right, all right, maybe I'm gonna just get some candy. I couldn't find candy. I was like, then I started really looking. I said, wait a minute. I've never heard of these brands. I've never seen these items. I don't even know what this stuff is. And that's when I really started to see the difference between the produce in our neighborhoods versus their neighborhoods. It's not a conspiracy. You can literally go to a white neighborhood and see the difference. You'll see the difference in the price, first and foremost. You'll see the difference in the actual products. Way less stuff that says genetically modified. Way less stuff that you can't read. It's natural products. That's stuff that you could practically make within your own kitchen. The prices are lower. You see just a total contrast of what we're accustomed to around here. Products that you can't read, chemicals that you don't understand or can't read, but you buy them because it's convenient and it's what you have, it's what you know. But that's the major difference. When you're talking about cursed in the basket and the store, you can see the major difference between the way that we live, the way that we eat versus the other nations. And even as far as the expiration dates, boy, you buy some milk at a Trader Joe's, you got like 3 weeks. Milk can last all month. You buy it at the Rob's, you got like 4 days. And it's like, man, you better hurry up. And then you got to, that's how you come up with a lot of these things that we find so normal. Past the expiration date, you just open it. Nah, that's still good. Because we so used to these conditions. We so used to it going bad so fast. You're like, man, how serious is that expiration date? That we're so used to it, it's become normal. But that's not normal. To have food that's going bad before you can get it home, and man, that's if you can get it home. Sometimes you see stuff in the store that already be moldy. Go tell an attendant, hey, this stuff has already been molded. They throw it away. They put something else out there that got 4 days.
And they're not even surprised.
Yeah, right. And they're not. It's not like an outrage. Like you don't get discount codes and coupons. Like, oh my God, we're so sorry. No. They be like, oh damn, I appreciate you. They trash that and they put something else out there that got 4 days on it. Cursed. Let's drop down to, and we're gonna highlight. I'm gonna specifically highlight the most obvious and. I'm not going to say pertinent because they're all important, but the most, I guess, visible curses that are within this chapter, and it's quite a few that we're actually going to get to, and it's for the sake of time as well. Drop down to verse 20.
This is verse 20. And the Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thy hand unto for to do. Until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me.
He said, the rebuke, the vexation, the cursing, and all that you set your hand upon. You ever notice, like, man, it's hard to get stuff going. Whether it's motivation, whether it's the laws that are set up, whether it's, just being able to have difficulty to find funding, bringing everybody together. Every time we try to be able to get something started for ourselves, it is rough getting started. And it's not like how the other nations, they'll go and they'll qualify for the loan, 60,000, 70,000. They'll get the business started. They'll have the name. They'll start getting things produced. They just have to work on actually getting the people to recognize their product. Then it's all about marketing. Every company in the world has to market itself. But we won't qualify for the loan. We won't be able to crowdfund because we're also dealing with people in the same tax bracket. We have all these different obstacles that we have to overcome and that are specific for us. And he said, whatever you set your hand to, all these things we have, you know how much talent it is in the hood? All these ideas that brothers and sisters be having, all these things. How many times have you been sitting with your friends? You be like, man, you see a new product coming out. I thought of that years ago.
All the time.
I bet you can say that for a number of things yourself, right? I thought about that years ago. But it's so difficult to get those things started, to actually be able to, like, if we came up with a product right now, where do we start? Do we start with the patent? Do we start with the rights? Do we start with the loan? It's difficult to get things started, right? Drop down to verse 22.
The Lord shall smite thee with the consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish.
He said, and they shall pursue thee until you perish. The consumption, the fever, the inflammation, the burning, and the sword. So you have all these diseases that run amongst us, all these conditions, all these disorders that our people have. And then one of the biggest things that always stands out to me in that verse, he said with the sword. Like our people, and this is another thing, like when you really start to not take things for face value, but investigate them a little bit more, our people will not say murder or killed. Like, oh man, it's so tragic. He died at 18. How'd he die? He got shot 6 times. That's not dying. That's not a natural cause of death. That's not a normal occurrence. That's a murder. That's a killing. When you talk about killed by the sword, we are dying, I mean, probably by the hundreds, if not the thousands per day. Gang violence, gun violence, at the hands of our enemies, at the hands of the police. There are so many of our people that are dying by the sword, on top of the conditions we have, the disorders we have, the illnesses and the sicknesses that we have, all these other things that we have to deal with. Go ahead, verse 23.
And the heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron.
Now, what is he saying? He said, the heaven over thee shall be brass, and the earth beneath thee or under thee shall be iron. What is he saying? You ever heard that term, stuck between a rock and a hard place?
God.
You just stuck. It don't literally mean we're going to look up and only above us is going to be one tile of brass, like just waiting to fall on us. But literally, we're like, it doesn't matter. We're stuck. Like, we're always under pressure. We're always, most of our people are stressed. That's why you see so many of our people with alcohol abuse, drug abuse, crack took over. Not only are these things addictive, but we're also looking for an escape. It's easy to sit up here and give somebody something that they become addicted to when they're already stressed, depressed, going through anxiety, have all these issues, and then you tell them that, here, this will help you sleep tonight. They about to
game over.
Right. Of course. And you can look up even I can't. It just came to my mind. I didn't actually prepare the study, but you can look up. It was in a TED Talk how if you take mice and you put them in a cage, a scientist put a mouse in a cage with 2 bottles of water. One had cocaine in it and one had regular water. Every time the mouse would overdose and die, and they were like, "Oh, see, cocaine is so addictive." But then they took a mouse and they put it amongst its peers, gave it toys, gave it things that it was interested in, a social, gave it the opportunity to be social, and they didn't really use the cocaine water. They used it, but it wasn't overused, and none of them died from overdose. So, like, when you are able to be at peace or have those healthy relationships, you're not constantly trying to escape your reality, escape this cage that it feels like we're in, you won't overuse these things. But specifically with our people, because of all the stuff we go through, because of all the trauma we have, because of all the tragedies we face, and it's not like the hits stop coming. You just got to keep rolling. You just got to keep trying to make it through it. Those things, he said, it's going to be like brass above you and iron beneath you. Drop down to verse 25.
The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies.
Uh-huh.
Thou shalt go out one way against them,
Uh-huh.
and flee 7 ways before them,
Uh-huh.
and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
So we going out one way before them, but fleeing 7 ways. That means everybody was ready for the fight. We all was in ranks, right? We all marching as an army to the fight. We going in one way, right? But then when we get to the battle, we get beaten so bad that everybody's fleeing 7 directions. It's every man for himself. The army falls, everything is destroyed to the point where people are just running to hope to be able to survive. That's what the Most High is saying. We going in one way and we leaving or fleeing out 7. And because of that, we'll be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. You can see all the different places that we are in the world. There's black people in Japan and China and Vietnam and the Philippines, or so-called Negroes in all those different places with the actual attributes, with the with the hair, with all of those things. You can see us scattered across the 4 corners of the globe. Everywhere in the world that there's an Israelite, there's a ghetto, there's a hood, there's an impoverished area, and that's the place that you can find us.
Con. Everywhere.
Con. Drop down to verse 26.
And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away.
You ever heard the term, man, that's for the birds?
Con.
Is that something that's of value or important? That's something you don't want to deal with, right? Like literally a saying like that is like, man, that stuff is for the birds. Like that's something I'm willing to lose. People don't take, or at least oftentimes people don't take fresh, properly prepared food and be able to give it to birds. You take your moldy bread,
right?
You take the stuff that you ain't gonna deal with, and you throw it to the birds. Okay, at least they can enjoy this because I can no longer use it. He said that's how our bodies, that's how our flesh is going to be regarded, just for the birds. You die by the sword, you get killed in the field, wherever it is that you are, and people, you leave the carcass out there. Let the animals come and eat it. Just no regard. It said no one's even going to shoo them away. Don't even have the respect to at least throw a rock in the direction or something just to get them up off you, to allow you to be buried. They have no regard for us. Drop down to verse 28.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart.
Madness, blindness, and astonishment of heart. Literally going crazy. You see so many of our people. One thing I read, like when you read about Yahweh Shai, it said that he went and cleansed all manner of sickness. Well, when you go crazy, so to speak, what do they call that? Mental illness, right? You have a sickness of the mind. Yes, the body can get sick. The body, you can have all these other different types of symptoms, excuse me, that when your body gets sick, but your mind can become sick. That's a curse. When you see, especially in our neighborhoods, you see, people just yelling at themselves or yelling to themselves, struggling with mental illness, talking to people that aren't there. Actually, read the next verse.
And thou shalt grope at noondays, as the blind gropeth in the darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
He said you groping at noonday. Just reaching, talking, blind and astonished in the heart. Madness. Literally, our people are going crazy and cracking under all the things that we face. And you see that heavily within our communities and in our neighborhoods. It's like the neighborhood, I don't want to give it y'all know what I'm saying. I don't want to just reduce our people to just being smokers. But honestly, there are a lot of our people that do turn to those things. And, the monkeys on their backs become gorillas to the point where they end up on the streets. And that is where they are. And they're out there for everybody to be able to see. Our people are literally losing this fight, losing the battle to the point where we're groping at noonday. Like I said, talking to people that aren't there, completely out of touch with reality, don't know what's going on. That's happening very often to our people. Go ahead.
And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
He said you're not going to prosper, and you're only going to be oppressed and spoiled. Spoiled means to be robbed. He said you're going to be oppressed and robbed. Because it ain't like we're in this land and we treat it like niggas, but we're financially stable. It's not like we all rolling around balling, but you just better not let the police catch you. We're oppressed. We're treated like second-class citizens. We're not given the same rights. We're murdered on camera and our killers are acquitted. we're oppressed and we're spoiled and we get robbed. You work, you know, you're trying to be just a good person within yourself. Go to a regular job, trying to build something the right way, so to speak, right? You still getting robbed. Taxes coming out your check, cut your check in half, cut your money in half. You done worked all those hours and you paid Esau damn near as much as they paid you. Oppressed and spoiled. Drop down to verse 30. Read on.
Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her.
And another man shall lie with her. Is Mr. Still your girl?
Gone.
Sitting up there, you know, that old joke. Wonder if your daddy's the mailman or the milkman. And that was for some, you know, for a lot of men, that was really a concern. They off working and the whole time they really hoping that their wives are being faithful. And, you know, a lot of people found out that they weren't. Said, we shall betroth the wife and another man is going to lie with her. Go ahead.
Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein.
Uh-huh.
Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
So we're going to build a house and not even be able to live within it. We're going to build a house and not even be able to live in it. Plant a vineyard and not be able to gather the grapes. That basically means, like, for all the labor that we do and for all the things that we build in this country, how much of it do we really benefit from?
Gone.
You got construction crews. You remember L.A., downtown L.A. was in the construction for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Our construction is full of our people. We are literally still to this day building this country. And how many of our people even, you know, have jobs in those buildings? We pave the same streets that we're not even safe to walk.
That's crazy.
Who else is this happening to? Who else can say that they're cursed to this magnitude outside of the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, right? Outside of the so-called, or outside of the Israelite man. These are the things that we're going through. It's undeniable. It's irrefutable. Drop down to verse 36.
The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou hast set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. Mm-hmm. And there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone.
He said, thy king, you and your king that you set over you, unto a nation that we haven't known. So it wasn't like when we got, you know, Esau has the prison system to where everyone's divided into classes, right? If you're a wealthy man, you're not going to the same prison as somebody who, you know, committed a petty crime that they got arrested for. They divide amongst themselves. But when it comes to us, he said, your king, whoever it was, anybody that was of high regard, our people aren't given those special privileges and rights just because we have or we're in a place of authority amongst ourselves. They brought kings, they brought chiefs, they brought, you know, elders, whatever it was, here to be captives, here to be slaves and to live as slaves. And he says, we'll serve other gods, wood and stone. Our people are divided into two major religions, Christianity and Muslim. Right? Islam. Islam. You look at the church, they always have what? That wooden cross. That cross that Christ carried. People worship the cross. People pray to the cross. People got crosses in their houses, on their rearview mirrors. They wear them around their necks. They literally worship these things. People don't feel comfortable leaving their houses without at least one cross. Because when they get into trouble, they're going to take it from off their neck and start praying to Jesus. You're literally serving another God because the scriptures tell us not to have any idols. The scriptures tell us not to make graven images, not to bow down ourselves to the likeness of anything. Then on top of that, if Christ was killed on a cross, what makes you think he likes them?
I always ask people, like, if your loved one was killed in the street and, you know, they draw that chalk outline, are you going to make a chain based on that chalk outline to remember them?
Right.
That's madness.
But that's what our people do with Christ, right? And we serve, and then with Islam, right? They have the Kaaba stone in Mecca. And they say you're not a real Muslim if you don't at least sometime in your life make that journey to be able to walk around the stone. Literally praying to that stone. People are praying outside of that big black box, bowing down, saying their chants and their prayers. Our people are literally serving other gods that we have not known. These are not the gods of our forefathers. These are not the gods of this Bible. People think that they serve in the God of this Bible, but they haven't truly read or understood their Bible in order to understand how you serve the Most High. what he requires, what he is interested in, what he desires for us. Right? Read on.
And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee.
First off, he said you're going to become an astonishment. You know what astonishing means? It means it's incredible. Like, man, that's incredible.
Sports. Entertainment.
Oh, man, our people are the biggest entertainers. The biggest superstar, the richest rappers in the world is Jay-Z and Beyonce, so-called Negroes. Drake, Kanye West, so-called Negroes. You have all these entertainers, and it's to the point where so many people call on these entertainers even to be leaders because they're just such big idols. They think that they have so much power, and it's like, dude, they're just an astonishment. Make no mistake, they still are just niggas in this land. They're still second-class citizens. All that money, LeBron's still getting nigger spray painted on his walls of his own house. He was like, man, I can't believe this happened. It's like, what? Because you got all that money? They haven't forgotten who you are
at all.
They haven't, suddenly upgraded your status. There's people out there that they don't care about that money. All they see is that Israelite man standing behind that status. And that's all they care about. You ain't one of us. But we're still, and it's huge. And it's, Esau has made big business out of pimping and prostituting our people, making us sell ourselves, making us present ourselves, go to the NFL Combine. So many little black boys and girls, their whole dreams and their entire life is based on this sport, hoping to be useful to our oppressors enough to benefit from it themselves. I'm going to the league. I'm going to the NBA. Every little so-called Negro boy you talking to, they got a dream of playing football or playing basketball. That's what we want to do. And now you're starting to see a rise of fighters. I want to be in the UFC. I want to do MMA. But we're still in astonishment. We're still just, look at this big, 6'4", 300 pounds. Look at him. Look how he can hit. Look at how he can get hit. Look at this. Look at that. It's astonishing. People come from overseas. They want to go see the hood. Take a tour like this is a zoo. All these Hollywood tours that be driving around the streets of L.A., they ain't going to never stop, but they sure want to look at the niggas. Man, look at that. Wow. Look at that one. An astonishment. He said a proverb and a byword. Those are like contemptuous sayings or names. You want to hide something from a nigga?
Put it in a book.
Woo. That's not practiced. I learned that, and he learned that.
Separately.
Because those are sayings that our people have. And then we have all these bywords, all these different names that everyone calls us. Coons, porch monkey, nigger, spear chugger, tar baby. Just it goes on and on.
It was amazing. I found a website that had the different bywords, and they were categorized by race, right?
Our list was super long, wasn't it?
It was like 8-1. And the amazing thing is, like, not only in English, but literally every other language is bywords for us. Like, we can't go anywhere and not be who we are.
It's not specific to America. Because remember, the Most High said all these curses are going to overcome you. They're going to pursue you. No matter where you go, it don't matter what you do, it don't matter how you feel. You are going to be subject to these curses. You're going to be subject to these things. And who was that recent basketball player that got pulled over? You know what I'm talking about? I wish I knew it off the top. It was a basketball player though. He's one of the household names. Someone that you could bring up and you'll recognize almost immediately, which is a shame because I don't remember who it was. But he got pulled over by the police and they was treating him like he was regular. It was no kind of like, oh my God, you know how they do in the movies. Oh my God, do you know who we just pulled over? Can I get a picture? They was like, license and registration. Oh, keep your hands where I can see him.
Right.
He was no different. We are these things, whether we want to be or not, no matter how hard we work to be in this system, we're still these things. Drop down to verse 41.
Thou shalt anoint thyself with the oil.
Verse 41.
Salakia. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
Going into captivity. So you look at this in a number of ways. Not only do our children have to go to school, or it's a truancy, literally a federal crime if they're not enrolled and not attending. right? Not only do you have all those things, but even once our children become grown, everyone, especially that's why you had so many big families coming from the South, because they had so many. You can bring it back to us. I'm gonna get to that in just a moment. You have so many families with like huge families that were coming from the South, because they literally, and this is not something this is something I learned from my grandpa because he's from Mississippi. You wanted to have a big family and to be able, it was either my grandpa or Karatas out, let me correct that. But you wanted to be able to have a big family because the more hands you had, the more money you made. So people would have, 14, 16 kids because they're looking at it as that's 14 incomes coming into one household, 16 incomes. And that we're going to be able to actually make some money and do something with ourselves because we're going to have all these different hands in the field. He said, you're not even going to be able to enjoy your children. We literally looked at our children as opportunities for money. Of course, you love your kids, but you thinking like, man, look at all those hands. I get paid. Man, let's have another one because we need more. It's just this never-ending cycle. Our children go into captivity. It's very rare that you even have children that become grown and are allowed to stay within their parents' household. Parents be ready for their kids to turn 18 so they can throw them out onto the streets. Hey, you're responsible for yourself now. They took care of you for so long. They got to go into captivity. It's time for you to go start working. You had your years to be indoctrinated and to be educated. Now it's time for you to just go start working for Esau like I had to when I was your age. Go ahead and get out. Then you hardly see them because they working. They're busy with their lives. They're going through that same captivity that we've been experiencing for all that time. They going into captivity. Drop down to, actually you can take us over to the PowerPoint, right? So you see our children going into captivity, right? You see the modern day being in the school, and then you see in the past being with slavery. Literally our children being sold on auction blocks for whatever the price was. Whether it was alcohol, sold as sex slaves, sold as cotton picker slaves, whatever intention or purpose that they were sold for, we haven't been able to enjoy our children since we've been in this captivity. No matter what reason or what outlet that our enemies have chosen, they go into captivity. They go through their process, they get older, then they got to start living their process themselves. Then they have kids, and it's just this repetitive cycle over and over and over again of us going into captivity. Not being able to even enjoy our children because we still going through captivity. You get home after an 8-hour shift or a 9-hour shift, 30 minutes to and fro, that's already 10 hours out your day. You sleeping for 8 of them, that's 18 hours. Now you got 6 hours. That's not counting the time that it takes you to get ready and get out the door. By the time we get to our children, we be exhausted.
And if you have a 30-minute commute, that's good.
Right, and that's decent, at least for California, at least in LA. That's a decent commute. Like, okay, that's not too bad. 30 minutes one way, that's another hour out of your time. And it's not like you're getting compensated. It's not like they say, okay, you worked your 9 hours plus you drove. It'll take you an hour in total a day. Nope, you got paid for your 8.5 because they ain't paying you for lunch. Go ahead. We're going into captivity. Drop down to verse 44.
He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him.
Take us over to the PowerPoint. Go ahead.
He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. Everywhere you look in the hood, it's a payday, a loan store, a checking cash, Quicken Cash. There's so many of them out here under different names, but they all selling the same thing. Then you have all these apps. Now, that's the new thing is apps. You don't actually have to be there in person. You can download this app. We'll pay you this amount of money before payday. Man, I'm broke. I can't get no gas. I need to be able to do something before payday. Well, download this app. It's constantly marketed. We're always needing loans. We're already working. We're already doing what we're supposed to do for the most part as far as, providing and bringing in currency. And yet we still have to constantly turn to our oppressors despite all of that because we need more, because just to be able to survive, just to be able to continue to function, just to be able to get through. We always asking for more. Oh, I need another loan. All right, I need another one. All right, I need another one. That's a big way that Esau makes money is interest. Everything that they loan, they just want a little bit more back. That's why they don't mind give you a credit card. They might give you $3,000-$4,000 on your first go because they know that you're going to spend it, and then they're going to start charging you interest. And don't let it be compounding where it's constantly adding up. We're being lent to, but we're not in a position to lend. How many black banks do you know of? Can you name any black banks off the top?
No.
You know of any black banks?
There's like one or two around, but I don't know them off the top of
You
my
don't
head.
even know them, right? We can say Chase. I don't know. That's the thing, though. But if I say Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, we all know those.
God.
How many of our people are in there?
That's
Maybe
really
maybe at the bottom level as a teller.
Right.
Maybe as a worker, we're allowed in these businesses, and we're a part of things. But we're always being lent to. We're never lending. Read on.
Moreover, all of these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearken not unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Now remember, this is something key to constantly reaffirm and keep in mind. We are in the conditions that we are in because of our disobedience to God. It is not a coincidence. It's not a just so happened. It is literally a direct result of our disobedience to God. Go ahead.
What else could it be? That's the thing that I always ask, right?
Right.
It's either that or, black and brown people are just not good enough.
We know we're not genetically inferior.
Con.
We eat crap and still age slower than Edomites.
Right.
I mean, man, you ever see their
Right.
routines? They be up in the morning. They stretch for like an hour. They be like, man, okay, y'all, they really know how to take care of themselves. Right. Yeah, I'm having a non-fat Greek yogurt acai bowl with fresh blueberries. I'm like, damn, you still look 15 years older than me. Still aging faster than all the other nations. And yet we're sitting here, we're consuming all this crap and all this garbage, and we still have this youthful look about us. He said, look, all these things, like, it doesn't make sense that we're losing.
Right.
As strong as we are, as creative as we are, as the mental fortitude we have. You got, you remember years ago, all them white folks in New York on Wall Street, they lost millions of dollars.
Right.
You talk about billionaires that lost maybe hundreds of millions, and they was jumping out the window.
Right.
We be having only $60 to our name and lose that and be like, God, what am I going to do? You're not going to blow your head off.
Right.
You're going to figure something out. I'm going to have to call somebody. I'm going to have to. And then, unfortunately, sometimes then it turns to us turning to crime or turning to grime to be able to get paid. But the fact of the matter is we have it within us to be like, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make something shake to where I'm going to get what I got to get. That's within us. Yet these other nations,
they don't have that.
They don't have that. So when you look at like the athleticism, I mean, just look at all these different factors and components, and it's no shortage of warriors. All these men that are gangbanging in the streets, that's literally running up on each other, gunning each other down, that don't regard life and death. That's a warrior. When they talk about war on the streets, I've been to war, but ain't never been to Iraq. That's war. That's a warrior. The unfortunate reality is they've been turned against their brother. They've been turned against their own to the point where now they don't regard their enemy as those that brought them in slave ships, those that roll up and down the street waiting for them to slip so they can gun them down, those that they're constantly having to go to get the scraps from. We don't look at our enemies as who our true enemies are. We're looking at over our shoulder. We're looking at our own.
Crabs in a barrel, right?
Crabs in a barrel. But this is the result of our disobedience. This is the punishment. This captivity, living in America, is punishment that God, the God of this Bible, has put upon us for disobeying his commandments.
That's right.
And you still have so many of our people saying, can't nobody keep all them laws. I'll be like, God. You know what it's like? It's literally like you ever in elementary school, how the teacher was like, we can go once everyone's quiet. And there was always that one person that just was like, showtime.
For everyone, right?
Showtime. It's time to be a comedian. That's what it's like to be an Israelite. That's the plight of an Israelite. Because some of us really want to get right. Some of us really want to go home and leave, and we don't like this. And some of us are just having fun with it. They used to be like, hey, yeah, it is what it is. Like, that's why we're still in captivity, because so many of our people refuse to repent, refuse to get right with the Most High. They were born in captivity, and they will die in captivity, because God will not reverse these curses until we repent. Finish that up. Come on, finish that. You need to get through the whole verse. Verse 45.
Because thou hearkenedst not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee.
He said, because you wouldn't obey the commandments. Go ahead.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
So this is what I was talking about as far as the identifiers. The Most High said this is going to be upon you and your seed. So this is one of the ways that we know that the so-called Negroes are Israelites, because we fit these descriptions.
We're the only ones.
We're the only one. Negroes, Latinos, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, we're the only ones, but we're specifically focusing on Negroes. We're the only ones that live in these conditions, and we make light of it. You know, we find ways to survive and ways to overcome, but we're still in captivity. That's why it's so hard to be able to sometimes just wake our people up, because you have to be asleep to be able to live in this world just to be able to get through it. It's horrible. The conditions that we face, the stuff that we go through, it's overwhelming. It's cursed conditions. So, but you can, you know, the Most High was saying, you know, these things are gonna be upon you. They'll be a sign. Every time that you wake up and you going through it, when you go to work and you getting paid those scraps, when you look at your, you know, the wicked ruling in this earth and, you know, wondering why, he said, yeah, that's because the Most High literally said, I did that so that you can see for yourself. Read on. Verse 47.
Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things.
He said, because you just wouldn't serve with joy. Yeah, you got to do something, but I mean, we're serving now. We don't have any joy. I would have much preferred, and even without the captivity as an option, I would have much preferred to serve the Most High. And he was willing to reward us for that effort and that labor. Already promised us, made us a covenant that in the next life we have an opportunity at salvation, unlike any of the other nations have. But even said, even on this earth, I can give you peace and pleasure. But he said, because you wouldn't serve with gladness, made it seem like it was a burden, like the Most High is getting in the way of something you got going. He said, okay, well then live like this. Now we, come on, Lord, let us in. Please. Now we eager to be able to serve the Lord because we understand what it comes with, right? Read on to verse 48.
Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, and in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things.
He said, serve your enemies that the Lord brought upon thee. Hunger, thirst, nakedness, want of all things. Read on. Finish that up.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
So he said in hunger, thirst, and he's talking about slavery, right? Take us over to the PowerPoint. Hunger and thirst. Put a yoke of iron upon your neck. Who has this happened to? Who can identify with this? And hunger and thirst out there in the cotton fields. You remember, what was it? Was that The Color Purple? It was like, Master, can I please have a water break? Or was that Roots? It might have been one of the.
Yeah. I think it was Roots.
Roots? Yeah. Man, you can see all these different representations in it. Look at the yoke of iron upon our neck, the chains, all these things. He said, you're going to serve your enemies. Not only in so-called chattel slavery, but even to this day. Do you just get to be able to walk away from your work whenever you want to?
Definitely not.
No. Even if you're working from home, I guarantee they have some kind of system to be able to monitor you so that you're not just able to do whatever you want. But before COVID, when you actually had to be in the office, you could get, they'll sit you down, you taking too many bathroom breaks. We understand your productivity has dropped by 12%, and we've seen that your bathroom breaks have gone. Are you okay? It must be something wrong with you, Nick, because you go into the bathroom. Yeah. Get your ass to work. Get back to work. Don't be in that bathroom all day. You come on out here and get back to work in hunger and in nakedness. Not only in slavery, because we literally got the scraps, we got the crap, and we didn't have the proper clothing just to be able to cover ourselves. But even now, we have lunch breaks. You get a break. They get to and they you get to choose. They tell you you get to go to your break 2 or 2.5 hours after you start. You get a lunch break before 5 hours. You get another break at this time.
Wait, but this is the kicker, right? They had to make that a law.
I don't even know if that's unanimous across America either.
I don't know. I know it is.
That might be a state law.
Right. So it's crazy that they had to legislate that because they didn't want to give you a break.
Literally. wouldn't give us the opportunity to just be like, oh, he lazy. You be, you got still to this day people scared to take, breaks too long or do too much or go too far because you're like, man, I got to be back at a certain time. They'll fire you quick, and that's your whole livelihood. Even if it was the scraps, you can still eat the scraps. Still got to have something. Say we're in hunger and nakedness. He put a yoke of iron upon our neck, but listen to this. Listen to the diction. Until he hath destroyed thee. You ever had pit bulls, right? You take this big, ferocious dog. My cousins used to breed pit bulls, right? And I remember one of my cousins, he had a choke chain on this, like the little bitty puppy. He was old enough to be able to walk a little distance, but it was still a small puppy. Had a choke chain on him. And every time that puppy get curious, because he outside, he excited. Get the sniffing too long, he get to choked up. He walk back normal. They get a little further. The puppy see a squirrel, he try to take off. He get choked. He come back. Say that the same thing. It literally gets to the point where you train the dog so well while it's small and powerless, to where when it gets stronger, gets older, and becomes more powerful, where it really could prevail against you, could really seriously do some damage or kill you or snap the chain, whatever the case may be, you take the chain off the dog.
And the dog don't even think about it.
He will not run. You see a squirrel, his ears might perk up. He might be like, oh, I want to, but his mind is already like, you can't.
Right.
He's tried to run and got choked so many times, it won't even try anymore because he doesn't want to get choked. And there's no longer a chain. But he still has that fear of the choke in his mind. Same thing with the so-called Negro. We were in those chains up until the point where you could read about Frederick Douglass saying that slaves were arguing who had the richest master. My master got this many slaves. What y'all on that plantation? y'all ain't on sugar, honey, iced tea. Cause master over here, he got 65 slaves. Y'all only got like 12. It ain't hardly none of y'all over here. Like, damn, you that destroyed. Stockholm Syndrome. If you haven't heard of Stockholm Syndrome, look that up. That is literally fear or concern for someone that is oppressing you. You see that in, I have so many references that I wish I would have. What's the name? Man, it was a movie years ago. Can't remember the name of it, but I know it was about a bank robbery, right? Guy goes in there. They're holding hostages in the bank. It becomes complicated. Police have surrounded the bank at this point, right? And they send out this I know what you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and they sent out the lady with the robber, and she was like, don't do it. She was protecting him because she was so terrified and mentally incapacitated and overwhelmed by the situation that she started to root for her oppressor as opposed to, the officers that were there to save her. That's Stockholm Syndrome. You literally are to the point where our people defend Esau. We go on the street, we say salvation is only for you, Israelite. But what about the white man? Literally had a brother cry and was like, he was ready to fight. Like, no, you cannot say this. How could you say the white man won't get salvation after all the slavery, the lynchings, after, making, just all the different things that they've done to us, which I'm going to cover as we continue on because, there's so much to talk about. Our people are destroyed. We no longer have the chains about our necks, but we still don't chase because we too afraid of being choked. It's been embedded in us. It gets trained within us. And if even our own family members tell us, as you start to get older, you start to get a little bigger, family members sit you down, start talking to you about the police. Mm-hmm. Don't do this, don't do that. You a big guy, so you really ain't got no space. They fear for their life. They'll gun you down. It's that simple. God. Our people, that's that choke chain. Our people won't step out of line. Cop car come up, everybody get proper. I don't want to get choked.
Standing straight.
Everything. We're destroyed. They ain't even got to command it anymore. You see them. It's boom. Like a light switch. Read on.
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth.
As swift as the eagle flieth. Go ahead.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
Hold on. He said, take us over to the PowerPoint momentarily. A nation against thee from far. Oh, so this is Africa, right? Now, even though this map is condensed, it's very commonly recorded and well understood that it took 18 months to go from this part of the world, from these coasts of Africa, all the way over to America. It took a year and a half that our people were locked up on a ship, transported like animals, and brought to this new land under our oppressor. He said, a nation against thee from far. They was way over here. They was like, look, they took, think about 18-month journey, and that's talking about one way, right? That's one way, 36 months.
God.
For a man to have gone to, like, say if someone was in America, right? A white man in America, he gets enough money together to go buy a slave ship or acquisition a slave ship. You send that boat out, it ain't coming back for 36 months, 3 years, because it's an 18-month trip to, and it's an 18-month trip from. 3 years of travel time that they were willing to go through or go to every time over and over and over again to be able to gather us up. That's determination, wickedness, hatred. Like, man, who even bears a grudge? Or is that like you 18 months and you just on the ocean for a year and a half? Like, damn, you ain't had time to clear your thoughts and get right. You ain't had time to decide to turn back. You didn't have time to be like, all right, man, this is too much. We've been out here for 2 weeks. Man, I'm ready to go back.
Jeez.
2 weeks on a boat is a long time.
God.
Now imagine they're willing to go another year and a half. One way. Nation brought against us from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle. Go back to the PowerPoint real quick. What's America's, their favorite bird? What's their slogan?
It's national bird.
That's the national bird. Oh, man, there's nothing more American than a bald eagle.
What's on your quarter?
It's on the quarter, on the back of your dollar. It's on the flags. It's at the tips of the flag poles. It's on, it's on anything that America is invested in or is branded. You will see that eagle because it flies high above all the other birds. It's a swift killer. It flies in, it swoops, it snatches and grabs before you have a chance to think, before you have a chance to react. And it has sight, an incredible sight to be able to see small moving things on the ground from however high up in the air. Esau loves that. Look at the power. Eye in the sky. America loves that. America loves that eagle. The Most High didn't put this in here for no reason. These are identifying factors. Because who is he talking about? This is America. This is a so-called white man. He said, I'm going to bring an enemy, a nation against thee. Who has been our main adversary, our main enemies since we've been in this land? Hell, who brought us to this land?
God.
They've been our enemies, as swift as the eagle flies. And a nation whose tongue we don't understand. English is not our original language. This wasn't what our forefathers were speaking. This is what we speak now because we've been conquered and assimilated. We're a part of this society. We need to be able to function. We learn our language. Most of us don't even know what language we used to speak, let alone actually learning how to teach it or speak it. We don't have that. Go ahead.
A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young.
They don't care whether you're young or old. You are a nigga. They don't care. Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Sandra Bland, all different age groups. Tamir Rice, what was he, 12?
God.
They don't show favor to the young. You're like, hey, they don't care. Old, young, elderly, infant, everybody was getting it. You're not even talking about slavery, how they would use our babies as alligator bait. If you haven't heard about that, go look it up. Literally use our babies as bait for alligators. You have to think about the cruelty and really think about the process of what that would have looked like. Snatching an infant away from its mother as she cries and begs for you, please don't do this. Throwing a baby out there or using it to lure an alligator. Is that going to be, a quick, instant death? Is that a quick release? Did they care? I read where elderly slaves, when they were no longer to be able to be of any help, they got so old or so broken in that they couldn't do much of anything outside of maybe take care of themselves. There were some slave masters that would give them half a pound of flour, a bag of rice, and they would take them out on a carriage, leave them somewhere in the woods, and they come back. Like they can't fend for themselves. They can't run. They can't fight. They can't hunt. You took their best years. They're laden with injuries and ailments because they've been working on their lives at the crack of dawn until the darkest point of night. But yet Esau didn't care. It was like, look, you're no longer of use to me. Same thing that they do even now with the work. You get used until you're no longer of use. Yeah, it's like, all right, you can go. I got what I got. I got what I needed out of you. You can go. They don't care about old or young amongst us. Drop down to, let's read 50. Actually, let's keep reading.
And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed. Which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, nor flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee.
Esau wants it all. Everything that we got, he wants it. Everything that we're involved in, he has made himself one way or another be involved in. They tax what you make. They overcharge you for, they underpay us and overcharge us. Then they tax us. Then it's like, all right, when you get to a place where they extort you and you're no longer even able to maintain, they're like, okay, they make you a terrible offer, just all of these different things. Esau wants everything that he can get. He's squeezing. You take that rag, you wring it out so many times, you squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. That's what Esau does to us. It don't matter what we have, he wants all of it, all that he can take, all that he can get. Wants it all. Go ahead.
And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down wherein thou trustedest, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God has given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thy own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God has given thee, in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thy enemies shall distress thee.
We look up the definition of that straight. That's strait. That's not speaking of straight like walking a straight line. That's literally talking about difficult. So he says, your enemy, because we're still talking about our enemies from verse 49, right? Really verse 48. We're still talking about our enemies all the way down. He said, he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest. Right? Because, you get to the house, you get to the crib. When we were in Jerusalem, we had this big wall. That's where everyone was. We felt safe behind that wall, right? We felt like we was cool. It says, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all your land until we're eating the fruit of our body, the flesh of our sons and our daughters. So I've heard, and I'm going to get to this and actually show the historic event, but I've heard people say like, well, why is eating babies and why is doing this in the Bible? This is a curse. This is not something that the Most High said he wanted for his people. This is not something that he said was commanded of his people. But he's literally talking about the siege of 70 AD, where it got so bad because we were, Esau was employing war tactics. They starved the city. They cut off the water, the supply of water and food. They cut off avenues to be able to receive sources. You had geniuses like the Sakari of that time who burned food reserves, right? You had all these things that happened up until the point where people were so hungry. You can take us to the PowerPoint. People were so hungry and starving so badly that they were willing to eat their own children, right? This is the siege of 70 AD, what I'm making mention to. If you haven't heard of it or if you haven't looked into it, Christ speaks about it, talks about it in the siege. The scriptures talk about here in Deuteronomy 28, speaking of the siege, but specifically talking about the baby, right? This is out of the book of Flavius Josephus, who was a Israelite historian. This was a brother who was alive during this time and recorded the things that he was seeing. So this is called Mary of Bethzuba, right? This is one of the accounts of a woman who was alive and experienced the siege of 70 AD. This is an account out of this book. It says, "My poor baby, why should I keep you alive in this world of war and famine?" This was that straightness that the Most High, that the scriptures just spoke of in verse, what was that, verse 53. This is that straightness that it was talking about. We were at war and there was famine. So not only were people being killed, but there was no food, no water, there was no resources, just a terrible time to live. So she's saying, man, why should I even keep you alive? Even if we live till the Romans come, they will make slaves of us. And anyway, hunger will get us before slavery does. So look where she is, between a rock and a hard place. Brass above her, iron beneath her. She's like, one way or another, we gonna get got. If the Romans come, they'll make us slaves. That's if we survive the famine. And that's, if we even survive to be slaves. Hunger will get us before slavery does, and the rebels are crueler than both. Come, be food for me, and an avenging fury to the rebels, and a tale of cold horror to the world to complete the monstrous agony of the Jews. With these words, she killed her son, roasted the body, swallowed half of it, and stored the rest in a safe place. So she killed her son. She was like, man, I'm starving. She was on the verge of death. She was like, man, the only thing that's waiting for us is either death through starvation, or being made a slave by the Romans. And she's like, man, I really don't want to fall into the hands of the rebels. So she decided to kill her son, and she ate him, ate half of him. Then she saved the other half. It says, but the rebels were on her at once, smelling roasted meat and threatening to kill her instantly if she did not produce it. She assured them she had saved them a share and revealed the remains of her child. Seized with horror and stupefaction, they stood paralyzed at the sight. But she said, this is my own child and my own handiwork. Eat, for I have eaten already. Do not show yourselves weaker than a woman, or more pitiful than a mother. But if you have pious scruples and shrink away from human sacrifice, then what I have eaten can count as your share, and I will eat what is left as well. At that they slunk away, trembling, not daring to eat, although they were reluctant to yield even this food to the mother. So they sit up here, they were terrified, like, my God. People talk about how war is hell. Even as far as the conditions that we've gone through, no one has gone through even the warfare that we've experienced. You're talking about warfare that's at home, not just people dying, not just, the civil war within themselves, because the rebels were of us, but literally people eating their own children. That's unheard of historically outside of this, this siege. I've never seen, other references or instances where people were turning to eating their children because the war and famine was just that bad. It's usually one or the other. You're dealing with war, but you got, some kind of food. You're not eating each other. Excuse me. Or you're dealing with famine and it's not war. But we were going through both so badly, this woman resorted to eating her own children. It says, and it was so bad, it says, even though they slunk away trembling, not daring to eat, although they were reluctant, they were hesitant to yield even this food. They were so hungry, they still thought about it like, dang, can we eat this baby? Can we do that? It was like, nah, we can't do that. But they still had to sit there and think about it like, man, it's still meat, it's still food. You got to think about how horrible of a situation that must be, about how horrible of a life that must be to live, to have been alive in that time period, to have experienced those things. When people heard of it, they shuddered as though they had done it themselves. Horrible things have happened. So when you see where the scriptures say that we're going to eat the flesh of our children, that doesn't literally mean that doesn't mean that this is what the Most High wanted for us, or this is, what all of us, but he said, look, in that siege, it's going to happen. And it's recorded for us to be able to see and read to this day that everything that the Most High said would happen has happened or is happening. And read verse 54.
So that the man that is tender among you.
Hold on. Look at the transition. Start it. What's that first word?
So,
because of this siege, right? All these things that are going to be happening, the siege, the straightness, the difficult things that we're going to be going through. He says, so that the man that is tender among you, go ahead.
So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother,
Uh-huh.
and towards the wife of his bosom,
Uh-huh.
and towards the remnant of his children which he shall leave.
Which he shall leave. Read on. Let's get to verse 56.
So that he will not give to any of them the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thy enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates.
So literally the man was going to be, and that's what you see. The rebels came in. They busted in the door. They didn't care that was a single mother with a baby. They was just like, we smell meat. It's ours until they realized what it was. Read on.
The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness.
So the woman that was so delicate and tender, it was like, I'm not putting my foot on that dirty ground. This real feminine, real soft, delicate woman. It said what?
Her eyes shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom,
Uh-huh.
and towards her son, and towards her daughter,
Read 57.
and towards the young one that cometh out of between her feet, and towards her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness wherewith thy enemy shall distress thee in thy gates.
He said it's going to be so bad. So you see this in two instances, right? Not only did you see the instances of our people literally eating their children, but you also even still see this to this day where, because he said his eyes shall be evil toward his brother. Boy, you talking about mean mugging? Man, what the nigga looking at? Hey, what you looking at? You know, no, that's really how it goes.
Really happened, yeah.
And literally, it got so bad. I realized this years ago. I was in the mall with my brother. It was me, my brother, and I want to say it was two other brothers with us. And we walked. It was four of us, and we walked across another group of young so-called Negro men, and it was four of them. And it was like we was sizing each other up. And we didn't even realize the moment up until nobody had made a move. We kind of all stopped. We kind of all looked at each other. We kind of all like, you know, you poke your chest out a little bit, make your presence known, and then we kept walking. And we sat there and we laughed to each other. We was like, damn, like, was we about to fight?
Right.
Like, bro, what did they do to us? Like, why was we, what happened? And it was that's a curse. Sitting up here looking for your own people. A lot of times you tear your keys to your house, you're not looking over your shoulder because the white man, well, sometimes they will follow you home, but you're not really looking for that commonly. Yeah, they will find us, but it's kind of like, that's almost like a lottery kind of thing. You never know when it's gonna hit. What you saw, but a lot of times we walking through our communities, we looking over our shoulders, we mean mugging, and we having a check over or look or whatever the case may be. We're looking out for our own people. Hey, nigga, where you from? Where you bang? Nah, lift your shirt up. Oh, you got tattoos? Nigga, what's in your pockets? Run that. What size shoes them in? Them look like my size. Snatch your shoes off. You're like, you going through it. And it ain't Esau, unfortunately. It's your own people. It be your own people that'll do you like that. And it says, and toward the wife of his bosom. You talking about all the domestic violence, all the arguments. We talk, Brother Yashamai talked about that this past Friday about how, there was that video of all these young men. I'm talking about high school age young men being asked, do you prefer white women or black women? You seen that? And they was all like, man, I want the white girl. I don't want to deal with the black woman. Now she got too much of an attitude. She too this, she too that. We have an evil eye towards our women. It says, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. Take us over to the PowerPoint. Which he shall leave. The single parent house, about 67% of black children are born into a single parent household. The African American segmented nuclear, unmarried mother and children, and two, unmarried father and children. Family structures are defined as a parent-child relationship. 67%, that's over half. Half is 50. We're 17% past that. We're nearly at 70%. Almost 3/4 of our people born in single-parent households. Households full of children, no men. And then now you really see a lot of, even the mothers turning away from their natural affection and natural desire that they have towards their children. This is too much. I can't do this. They leave up and leave the father with his child. These are curses that have been put upon us. You see this so commonly within us that the men don't want to be men, the women don't want to be women. We're not playing our roles. You don't see the white woman moving like that. You don't see the white woman, being the independent woman that don't need no man. I'm yet to see a white woman say that.
You don't see that with any other nations of women.
You don't see that with any of them. I wouldn't even. I can't even imagine like an East Indian woman sitting up here talking to her. I don't need you. I can't even imagine it. I just can't even imagine. But you see it so commonly. It's common practice. The baby mamas, that's common. Like it used to be you had to get married before you had kids, even before you was having sex. Then everybody was having sex, but they wasn't legally married. And it was like you was ashamed if you got pregnant and didn't have no man in the house. Oh my God. Oh.
They would send you away to go live with your relatives.
You got to go somewhere else. You can't be here. Now that's like the standard.
Right.
Every pretty face, all these women, you see the kid right there with them. No man. No husband in the house. They posting, oh, my little king, my this, my that. And I'm not disrespecting nobody or ishing on, the life that you have. But I'm saying, look, don't y'all think that's a problem? Brothers laying down with these women, having children with them, and then not being there for the child. Not being there when that child needs a father, needs direction, needs discipline, needs advice, needs counsel, needs protection. The husband is that's the backbone of the household. The scriptures call him the head. And we always think about that. Literally, look at your physical body. Cut your head off, you're dead. You could have the rest of you intact. Without a head, the body does not function, right? It does not work. It does not do what it's supposed to do without a head. The head contains the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, all of your sensory outside of touch, all of your sensory, all of your input, all of what you understand, it's right here in the head. It's right here. That's where the thinking happens, the thoughts, the decisions. It's all that. But I also think of it as the tip of the spear. Into danger. The first thing that, boom, makes the contact with the enemy's armor. The first thing.
First line of defense.
The first line of defense. The first thing to smash through an enemy's heart is the tip of the spear. You don't throw a spear backwards, you throw the sharp end. That's the head. We plunge head first into the wars, the danger, the obstacles. That's where the men come in. But yet, so many of our men, we have left our women. Left the children. Left, our responsibilities. So many, even of our friends, like people was shocked. My father wasn't really in the household, but I know him. Even people was like, dang, man, you had a time where there was both your parents in the household? Like, damn, you didn't? Never? Like, man, it's mind-blowing. But like I said, it's so normal to us, we don't even think about it anymore. It's common. Oh, that's just my baby daddy. Who that? That's just my baby. That's the song. You ever? I know you start smiling. I know you know the song, right?
Yeah.
That's just my baby daddy. That's all he is. Yeah, he just, that's just my baby daddy. And it says the tender and delicate woman, her eyes gonna be evil towards the husband of her bosom, all the domestic violence, the issues, problems, the attitude towards the son and her daughter. So many people growing up in broken households, growing up as broken people because of their, abusive parents, the individuals that they had to face, the things that they experienced in their childhood homes. It's about everybody that has issues, especially amongst our people. So much of it comes from childhood. That's even Dr. Phil. That's the first thing he always addresses. Let's talk about your childhood, because it always starts there. And that's when you look at our childhood, it's full of all the curses. It's full of all these things summed up constantly and reaffirmed daily. Waking up, not having a father in the household was those curses. Waking up, not having the mother in the household, those curses. Being treated bitterly by those parents that chose to remain. Now they upset, treating you like you're the burden. Treating you like you begged to be there and now you ain't carrying your weight or something, Cursed. Okay, we read down to 57. Hold on one second. Let's drop down to, actually, read on from verse 58, because the Most High is in this. Go ahead.
If thou wilt not observe and do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God. Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful.
The Lord will make your plagues wonderful. Go ahead.
And the plagues of thy seed even greater plagues, and for long continence.
Hold on, read that again.
And for long continuance. And sore sicknesses, and of long continuances.
He said, first off, the Most High said, because you wouldn't serve, constantly reaffirming. Remember, that's like everything that we go through. He said, remember, your actions did this. You ever love somebody, you want the best for them, but you have to cut them off? You be like, man, I love you, but I can't deal with you. And it's not like I wanted this for you.
Right.
But the things that you do, I can't be around that. I can't be a part of that. And they go through tragedies not having you in their life.
Right.
Not having that extra source of income, that place to stay, that shoulder to cry on, that person to call on. They go through all those different things, all because it's like, dude, I just can't deal with you. The Most High was saying the same thing. He said, because you refuse to serve, because you refuse to hearken unto the commandments. But we lost a whole lot more than just a little income and a place to stay with the Most High. We done lost everything because of our disobedience. That's why the Most High reaffirms, because you wouldn't obey, and all you got to do is come back to obey. We struggle with that. Read on.
Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed.
All these sicknesses, the mental illness, the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the
heart disease.
Heart disease, all these different issues. And everybody always says, oh, yeah, this runs in my family. No, curses run in your family.
God.
Disobeying the Most High's commandments runs in your family. That's why you got Big Mama ankles swelled up to the size of footballs because she's still eating pork. And you can find in Leviticus 11:7 where that's unlawful. You can find all these different things. There's not one issue in our community that could not have been or could not still be solved by keeping the commandments. You look at the crime, you look at the thefts, you look at the murders, there are commandments against those things. The single-parent households, the adultery, the fornication, commandments against those things. The everything that you can name, there are commandments against those things, guidelines or advice, counsel, statutes, laws, and commandments that give you clear understanding and edification as to how to conduct yourself, how to handle the matter, whatever the case may be. But because we've, thrown the Bible out the window, look at all the stuff that we go through. Look at all the things that we experience because we're not keeping the commandments. Drop down to verse 65.
This is verse 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind.
That's why you have our people that we're so addicted to all these different things. Because, we're not just doing it just to do it. Some people think stuff is cool. Smoking weed is cool. Oh, man, coke is, it's like, it's really not. They become means of escape. They become ways that we have to, we trying to cope. Hitting the blunt as soon as you get off work. Everybody kind of makes that joke. Mm-hmm. What you doing when you get home? They see all the reels and YouTube shorts, all these different forms of entertainment. And it's like, bro, you got a problem. I'm not judging. I'm not, looking down on you for that, but look at your condition. Don't you think that's an issue? You can't wait to be able to just be by yourself, because you can't find ease. Everywhere that we are, everything that we're doing, we do not find ease. Amongst all these different nations, amongst your coworkers, amongst all these people that claim they're there and they play cool, you can't find no ease amongst these people that we live amongst. You live in the wrong neighborhood, they give you problems. They looking at you like, nigga, what you doing in this neighborhood? Gathering, and they all staring at your house before they walk in. You like, oh, damn, what's going on? Trembling heart. Be ride or die in the streets, and that woo-woo. Everybody tuck, everybody throwing the pistols, everybody like, oh, what happened to war? Your enemies come down the block, car getting lit up. You riding down they block, lighting up houses, kids in it and all. That red, white, and blue come down that block, everybody's like, oh, nigga, I'm about to go in the house. Trembling heart, failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind, depression, anxiety, constantly weighing on us, constantly just trying to be able to find these different things or methods to be able to make us happy, but ultimately we don't find any peace. Go ahead.
66. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have no assurance of thy life.
Your life is, you're going to hang in doubt. Every morning that you leave the house, you understand that that could be your last day. That's why I say we live in a war zone. Our lives are literally war. Every morning you leave the house, you have even if you go into the store, Trayvon Martin died walking to the liquor store. Skittles and an iced tea. Regular life, like regular teenage stuff that we've done, that I've done thousands of times. Consider, you could lose your life leaving the house. You could lose your life even being in the house. Breonna Taylor died in her house. We don't have no rest.
No-knock warrants. There are like two. Just recently, this past week, 2 cases, I believe. Brothers died from no-knock warrants.
All these different things that's happening. No assurance. Every day we get up, this could be our last day. Whether it's out there or in here at our houses, that could be our last day, and that weighs on us. You know, we don't really, us as men, we don't really talk about the stuff we be going through, but you can see it. You know, all our people can see it. Like, man, I know he's going through a lot. Sometimes people are like, nigga, what you going through? All you can do is go to work. Like, yeah, but I know I could go to work and not come back. I know this could be my last day, and I spent it working for scraps. This could be my last day, and I didn't even have the peace I was looking for. I didn't even be able to decompress the way I was looking to. Then you see these men that die, and they just, the tragedies, or even with like George Floyd, calling for their mothers. Like, man, just after all of this, I was just really hoping to be able to find some type of peace. Our lives hang in doubt. We literally don't know when we're going to die, how we're going to die. And we don't have any assurance. There is no guarantee. No one can sit up here. We do that. All right, I'll see you later. All right, I'll catch you later. You really don't know. We say those things as commonalities, but we really don't know when our time is. That's why we always say, Lord willing, Most High willing, I'll catch you later. Yeah, Most High willing, I'll see you there, because I hope I can make it, but you never know. Go ahead.
One thing that we're pretty certain of is that it's not going to be death of natural causes.
That's one thing that is, you do have, and even if when it is a death of a natural cause, it's stress. Right. It's extreme conditions, these illnesses that come upon because of the cursed basket in the store, because of all these other illnesses that are already affecting us, because of, the sicknesses of our mind, poisoning the rest of our body. Every part of our life is a result of what the Most High has put upon us for our disobedience. In the same sense, we could turn around if we simply repent. Read that in Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1 and 2, but we're going to continue on with this. Let's get verse 68. This is the final scripture.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
So he says Egypt, right? Go to Exodus 20 and 2. When he says Egypt, you can look up historically that our people walked into Egypt with Jacob and the 70 souls, and we walked out with Moses. Geographically speaking, Egypt and Israel are only like a 2-day walk apart from each other, but we spent so long in that wilderness because the Most High was proving us. So when he says Egypt, is he literally talking about the landmass? Go ahead.
This is Exodus chapter 20 and verse 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
Out of the what?
The house of bondage.
Out of the house of bondage. No, let's go back to Deuteronomy 28:68. So understanding that Egypt, it even comes from a word, Mizraim, fortified border, like a prison, right? It says, out of the house of bondage will the Most High bring us. Or excuse me, out of or into the house of bondage will we be taken. Go ahead. Start from the top.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Into bondage again with a ship. Go ahead.
By the way whereof I spoke unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again.
So he said, I'm going to take you into captivity with ships, the way that he's told us of, and we will not see it anymore. We're not going to see our land. We're not going to go back home. All these different people, all of our people are claiming to be from Africa. We don't know which part. We don't know which tribe. We don't know where to go. And as a nation, we have not returned home.
And Africa is saying, no, you are not like us. We are not like you. We are not like African Americans at all.
A true African, a true Hamite, they don't even regard us or accept us as their people, which we aren't the same people, but that's the narrative that so many of our people are even banking on. Like, man, that's where we come from. Said we're not gonna go back. Yeah, you got individuals that'll fly and get that the whole kumbaya experience, like, oh man. But then for the vast majority, you see that our people as a nation, we haven't returned back to our land the way that we got taken from our land. We haven't. Go ahead.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies
And
for bond.
Hold on. And when we get to this land, we're going to be sold unto our enemies. Go ahead.
For bondmen
Uh-huh.
and bondwomen.
Go ahead.
And no man shall buy you.
So when we got off the slave ships, it wasn't like they was like, welcome to your new home, and let you run around like a dog on a farm. They was in the chains, in the slavery, taken to a plantation. Your new name is going to be Toby. This is what you do. Every morning, you're going to pick this cotton. You rebel, try to speak, or refuse, and this whips on your back. He said, and no man is going to buy you. Nobody's going to redeem you. We know we were bought and sold on auction blocks. But he said nobody's going to buy you in a sense of redemption. No one's going to save you from that. No one's going to be able to take you away from that. That is the curse of our captivity, the indisputable evidence that we are Israelites. Let's get one final scripture, Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1 and 2. Because after all these curses have come upon us and all these things that we've experienced, what are we to do now? Understanding that we are Israelites, what's our next move? Go ahead.
Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1.
Uh-huh.
And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God has driven thee,
Uh-huh.
and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee to this day.
Hold on. So he said, when it comes to pass that the blessing or the curse has come upon you, obviously we know we're cursed. We call these things to mind among all these nations. So we start looking at our conditions, and they start becoming a lot less normal. We start to call them to mind like, damn, why is it? Why do we live like this? Out of all the nations on the earth, why did they take, and how did they take the biggest, strongest, warrior? How did they even get us on them slave ships? How was people not fighting back and winning and going back home? How? He said, you're going to call these things to mind and choose to turn back to the Most High and return, because he said the Most High, it says, among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee. So the Most High is the one that put us into this captivity in the first place. He said, and when you return back and obey his voice, go ahead.
And thou shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I commanded thee this day, thou and thy children.
Can't be just you. And I've seen a number of Israelites. Social media, people will post stuff, and it's public, so anyone can see it. People will post things where they're keeping the commandments, they're obeying by the laws, but then their children aren't. Children, like sisters got on a dress and a head wrap, but then got their daughters in pants. Sisters, or brothers and sisters walking around with fringes, kids have on no fringes. Kids not knowing what the Sabbath is. Oh man, I'll be later. I'll be back later, son. What are you doing? Oh, I'm going to keep the Sabbath. Like, take him with you. Take her with you. We have to teach our children the laws of our God. It said, thou and thy children, go ahead.
With all thy heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will
Hold on. He said that then, once you got it and your children got it, and you doing it with all your heart and all your soul, you giving it everything that you got as a nation. He said, then the Lord thy God,
the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
So this is what we have to do. Now that we understand that we're Israelites, we have to turn back to the Most High God, and then he'll turn our captivity, have compassion on us, and save us out of the very things that he had the power to put on us in the first place. He has the power to put them on. He has the power to take them off. But it's up to us to not only understand that we are Israelites, but to now start keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments of our God. Did you have anything you want to add?
That's it.
All praises to the Most High. So I hope this lesson was edifying, Israel. I hope that, if anyone was lacking understanding or looking for some understanding, or even if this is your first time on the channel, that this was an eye-opener for you, because, we're not just these bywords that have been put upon us. We're not just, sheep to the slaughter for this world. We are Israelites. We're the children of Israel, and the Most High God has a covenant with us, and he will reward us according to our deeds. Now, if we're doing wrong, our reward will be, the curses that we clearly see that we've been subject to. We know that this Bible is true because we see all the things that we're living through, and we're living proof of these curses, of these commandments, of our forefathers' disobedience, but also of our God's promise. And in the same way that he promised us captivity, when we choose to do right, he promised to flip it as well and to have compassion upon us and rescue us from this. So, continue to like and share. And we appreciate everyone's time. We appreciate those that are tuning in with us. We hope that you continue to tune in with all the other lessons and classes. Share them with your friends. Share them with your family. Help us spread the gospel. And with that, we say shalom.